You're telling a true story, and you're imagining these guys going up there, and so that it has that gravitas.
So much of this project and the lineage of Band of Brothers in the Pacific is about a responsibility, a duty related to these men and their sacrifice.
It was an honor to represent them, it really was.
Major Egan, you were the first pilot assigned to the 100th.
Me and Buck Clevin.
You are in charge of 35 planes and 350 air crewmen.
Don't you die on me before I get over there.
Steven Spielberg, his father was a pilot, and after Band of Brothers was out, he said, when are you going to do the pilots? When are you going to do the air war in Europe? It's all about finding the material and the stories then to make that happen that you think will work. And yeah, that came from Masters of the Air, Don Miller's book. It took a while for the technology to get to a place where we could do these kind of sequences in the air, which we felt were really important to understand the jeopardy that these guys went through.
We got put in these replica planes that they had built, and they put us like 50 feet in the air on these hydraulic systems. There was a 360-degree screen, so it wasn't a green screen like you would normally be filming with. When the planes were coming toward us, they were actually coming toward us, you know? And when the bullets were hitting, the planes were shaking. So it was genuinely terrifying at times.
Some of it's volume and some of it's visual effects, and we did really a composite of a lot of things. P-51s we could put in the air, harder with the B-17s.
That was a real strong moment.
Yeah.
It was like, for me, I always had this thing, as soon as I put my boots on, I felt like Ken, and I really and the boots kind of really brought me down into him. I'm walking around in uniform around the locations. Was just kind of like,
It's an experience,
there.
Yeah. The barracks, the airfield, there's no cameras really in sight, and it's just, you see people doing their march drills, and
there's always so much going on.
It's quite surreal.
It's really surreal.
It takes a while to get used to. Huh?
It does take a while to get used to. I brought it home with me to practice, because with gloves and everything, to be able to get the mask on and off and to buckle it with gloves can be a bit tricky. So I would just, you know, watch movies and stuff and just be clipping it over and over and over. But by the time that you're in the plane, and there's that, I think I'd seen so many films where, you know, it had a similar feeling, whether it's Dunkirk, watching Top Gun for the first time, or any of these films, and then suddenly you're there and there's the sense of like, we're making a movie. This is, it was really, there's something very special about that.
I mean, would you say that you got to live your Tom Hardy in Dunkirk by being in the plane?
Finally put that jacket on.
Keep an eye on that gauge, even when it gets lively.
I remember, you know, doing Dunkirk costume fitting with Chris Nolan and being like, can I wear an aviator? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, maybe an aviator falls out of the sky and I pick it up and I put it on. Maybe that's my moment. But I finally got my moment with the aviator. No, the reason why I referenced Tom Hardy in Dunkirk is because he does a great job of conveying everything through the eyes, and it's quite powerful. And I had a chance to kind of, you know, to try and do that. All the intensity is in the eyes and in the cockpit. You know, sometimes without dialogue, and it's quite impressive. Not from me. I'm from everyone I'm on about. Sound like a from me. It's really quite impressive. I'm really impressed with myself.
It is.
The 8th will be sending up the largest air armada ever assembled in the history of mankind.
Straight into Hitler's territory.
Nate, I read that your grandfather was the physicist who worked on the Manhattan Project.
That's right.
When you were little, did you talk a lot about histories of war in your family?
Yeah, to clarify, I mean, he wasn't involved in the Manhattan Project directly. He was a nuclear particle physicist.
He was Cillian Murphy.
Yeah. He was no. He was involved in a lab that was conducting some of the research that ultimately ended up being used in the Manhattan Project. But he didn't actually know himself that was the end goal of his research. I wish I had spoken to him more about that growing up. I mean, I remember like going to his apartment and visiting him, and I mean, he would have like a legal pad full of formulas. I mean, he was just thinking in physics, thinking in mathematics, in a way that, I mean, to see my grandfather do that was extraordinary.
Well, Harry Crosby wrote a book called On a Wing and a Prayer, and I sort of used that as my Bible when I was filming. I would be reading it constantly, going back, reading little chapters here and there. You get so much of a sense of who he was. He's so self-deprecating. He's this war hero. And I think when you're playing a hero like this, you can sometimes fall into like the the trappings of, you know, I'm playing a hero, everything has to be heroic, and, you know, that sort of thing. Whereas Crosby, he just felt like a normal guy. These people didn't think they were heroes. They were just normal people thrown into extraordinary circumstances. So I think it's when playing them, it's always trying to bring it back to the reality of what's in front of them, you know?
100%.
I've got air sickness, or, you know, he's in love with this girl, or whatever it is. It's just these human things that they're going through.
We're here to fight the monsters. The things these people are capable of. They got it coming. Trust me.
I was aware that these guys were young, but then really, like, when you're putting yourself in their shoes and really kind of doing the prep beforehand to really understand, like, my character was 19 and I was 23, 24 when I was shooting this, and to kind of understand that responsibility.
And what's interesting about this TV show is and unique is that we see these guys go up, but we also see them come back down, the ones who make it. The development of their PTSD and how they deal with grief and their trauma of losing their friends, the people that are their family for that period of time.
We understand trauma and the kinds of trauma that these men went through very differently now than we did at the time. So a lot of it was trying to navigate what it would have been like for them at the time, as opposed to kind of a modernized perspective on it.
What? You might be the last pretty face I ever see.
The statistics really was the thing that broke my heart. 77% of these guys went down or were blown out of the sky. The belief and the guts and the determination that these men had to keep going back up into a warfare that was unprecedented. The technology was brand new. Fighting like that in the skies was the most dangerous place you could ever put yourself in.
What do you hope the younger audience get from this show?
Well, I hope they understand what was at stake at the time that these young boys went over with not a lot of experience and gotten these crazy flying machines, and actually were very successful and a big part of winning the war in Europe.
Everybody just had such a strong passion for wanting to do them justice. So I hope we made them proud.
There's certain stories I think we need to remember and realize what happened then, what's happening now, and how do we make the bad things not happen again.
We're gonna stick with our mission as long as we can fly.
We won't go without a fight.